Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Good evening. I hope we had a great day. Let me know if you can hear me very clearly and if you can see me clearly as well. Hello. Hi, Comfort. Can you hear me and see me? Okay, thank you, Comfort. All right, so let's just move on really quickly into what we're supposed to learn today. Today, we're supposed to go over the principles of design. And I hope you had a good time with the assignments, right? Can anyone share what was difficult about doing the assignments, if there were any difficulties at all? Anybody? So it means it was really simple.
No.
So I wanted in doing the assignment.
I wanted to I wanted to do it exactly as it was. I wanted to copy the font, but I couldn't really find the font. So I spent a lot of time trying to find the exact font that was used on the sample assignment, but I didn't find it.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I probably should have posted the exact font I used, but well, even if you didn't use the exact one, whichever font you used would have been fine if you achieved the exact same results. Any other person? Okay. I'm trying to open up my Canva, but my internet is acting up. I wonder what's going on. Sorry, please hold on for me a bit. Let me change my network. Okay, so yeah, I just changed my network. I think it should be much better now. Let me know if it's better than before. Okay, so I'm just going to go on into our presentation for today, which is principles of design. All right, and I'm sure we had a good time with the assignments, and at least we have a basic understanding of what it means to work with Canva on a basic level with moving shapes, text, and all of that. So today we're moving straight on to principles of design. All right. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we will be good to go. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see it.
Good. Thank you.
Don't blank.
Is loading, Shay? Yeah, I wonder why. Okay, shouldn't be loading. Okay, you know what? So basic design principles. All right. I'm just going to move on with this. Okay, so it's showing now, right? For the basic design principles, I want us to move really quickly because I need to do a lot of practicals as well with explaining the different principles. All right, so CRAP is a short acronym I use for the design principles, and C, I'm going to go over all what they all mean in a short time. Okay, but just remember CRAP, right? First is contrast. Okay, so contrast is basically just a position of dissimilar elements, like elements that are not similar. So when I put white and black together, they are not similar. If I put white and white, they are similar, so there's no contrast. If I put white and light gray together, they are not similar, but they are more similar than different. Okay, but if I put white and yellow together, they are still more similar than different because they are not dark. But if I put white and dark blue together, they are more different than they are similar because one is really bright and one is really dark. Okay, so that's basically what contrast is about. It's about the degree of difference between the lightest and darkest parts if it's a picture, or if they are basic elements, it's basically the degree of difference between the brightness of one element and the darkness of another element. And typically, the degree of the difference or degree of difference between things that are similar or they have comparable nature. So, for example, when I have 2 circles or 3 circles, right? The circles are similar in the sense that they have the same shape, right? But when I want to make a degree of difference with those circles, I can make one big and make the rest small. So what I've done is I've made the one that is big large in contrast to the remaining ones. All right, that's in terms of an element. But in terms of picture, many times you see pictures and you can tell that this picture has a very high contrast. So I'm going to do some basic explanation of how that works, right? So 3 ways or 4 ways, sorry, 1, 5. Oh my God. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ways you can create contrast, okay? First is by color. So if you look closely, you can see that here we have neon, light neon green and dark blue, okay? There are 2 colors that are different from each other, all right? And you can see the degree of difference in the 2 different colors, okay? Now, you can create contrast with tone or value. How can you create contrast with tone or value? When you have 2 colors that are the same exact color, for example, gray and black are the same color in the sense that it's black, right? Just one is a brighter shade of black and one is a darker shade of black in some sense, or one is a brighter shade of white and one is in the darkest form of white, right? If you want to use white or black, basically. So we can create contrast with using tone or value, all right? Another way you can create contrast is by using shape. So when you have different shapes, you are able to create contrast with the different shapes that you have. Or if you're not going to use shapes, you can create contrast with direction, okay? And another way you can also create contrast is with size. So I'm just going to quickly, let me say, dramatize, all right, how contrast works with color, tone of value, shape, direction, or size, okay? So let me create a new page. I hope you can see what I'm doing very clearly. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me before I move too quickly, all right? Okay. So now I want to create contrast with color, all right? Let's assume that I'm making a design, okay? And the name of my design is, okay, so let me create, let's say I'm creating a pattern, okay? Now, in this pattern, I'm using circular shapes, okay? Circular shapes, all right? So I'm just going to duplicate these shapes. How do you duplicate? You can duplicate by clicking this, and it's going to duplicate. So you see that we have two. Or you can duplicate by pressing Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and then dragging. All right. So those are two ways you can duplicate. I personally prefer to use Alt on my keyboard. So I'm just going to do that. Okay. So let's say I create this and I leave them at 99. All right. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select both of them, do the same thing, then duplicate. All right. I think this was 99. So I'm just going to keep it at 99 again. Okay. And then while you're duplicating, you see what's happening here. As I'm moving, it's going up and down, right? But if I want it to be on the same line, you can see that pink dashed line. It means that everything is in alignment, okay? But if you want to be very sure, you can also press Shift on your keyboard. So you can see I'm moving my hand up and down, but it's only moving left and right. Do you understand what I just did? So pressing Shift down is a way of keeping your alignment in whatever direction you move. So let's assume that I had selected these two elements and I wanted to move them downwards, right? If I press Shift, it's only going to go down, even if I turn left or right. Compared to if I leave the Shift, it's going to move any other way. Okay, so when we get to alignments, you're going to learn that's one easy way you can use to maintain your alignments every single time. All right, so I'm just going to do what I did before. I'll press Alt, and then now it's moving up and down. So I'm just going to press Shift, and I have everything under control. All right, so I'm just going to keep my 99. I think I have space for one more. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, and I'll do 99. All right, now I'm going to drag all of them. I'll keep them in this box. Okay, now because Canva is very intuitive, Canva is going to give you a nice bounding box around your edge. It's kind of like a border. Okay, so most times I advise when you're designing things that have a lot of text and images, ensure that you keep your text within that box. Okay, some other types of design will require that you go outside the box, and in those instances, it's fine. But when it's not in that instance, it's safe to keep all your elements within the bounding box. Okay, so now I'm going to duplicate this again. So I have 32, and then I'll duplicate this. I'm going to keep it at 30. Okay, so this is 37. Let me delete this. Okay. So now I'm going to delete all of this. I duplicated them and ensured they were in the same space so that now how contrast works is if it's color, for example, let's say every single one here, okay, you can see that they are the exact same color. Okay, if I want to create contrast with any of the elements, all I need to do is select the one I want to contrast, and I'll just change the color. I can change it to yellow. And then when you see this design, your eyes automatically go in the direction of the yellow objects because it's the most different. Remember, I explained that contrast is about the degree of difference. Okay, so imagine that this was not yellow. Imagine that this was this color, right? And then I just edited it a bit. Okay, now there's contrast, of course, because this is different from the rest of them, but the contrast is not as much as when it's a completely different color entirely. Let me know if you understand what I just explained about creating contrast with color.
Yes, I understand.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm going to proceed. All right, so if you want the contrast to be greater, you would use a color that is either on the dark end or on the light end. All right, so most times when you see designers design, right, many times they would have bright text on dark backgrounds or dark text on bright backgrounds, right? So that's because you want the contrast to be very good so that you can see what you are designing or what you're trying to point out, okay? Because you really want what what you're highlighting to be very visible. All right. So I'm going to do this again, okay, with, let's assume that they are all the same color, okay? Let's say they're all this color blue, all right? And I want to create contrast. So even if they are the same color in the sense that, look at this now, everything here is color blue, right? Light blue, obviously light blue, okay? If I want to create contrast with tone, all I need to do is make this blue much darker. And then it's a much darker shade of blue, right? So you can see that the degree of difference is higher like this compared to if I used a color like this. I mean, it's different, but the degree of difference is lesser, okay? So that's basically what contrast is about, ensuring that the degree of difference is wide, all right? So I'm going to move on. So yeah, this is the color, okay? Now, what's the third way? With shape, okay? So imagine that everything here, I have only circles, all right? And I want to create contrast with shape. All I need to do is impute a rectangle here, all right? And I'll retain the exact same color. So you see that even though all the shapes in this design are the exact same color, the fact that the square is very different from the rest of them in shape makes it stand out, even though they are all the same color. Okay, so that's how contrast works when you want to use shape. All right, if you want to use contrast with direction, let's assume that I want to use an arrow, for example. Let me impute an arrow, okay? Let me use this simple arrow, all right? Now, when you see that everything is in one direction, let's say everything is moving up, for example, let me reduce this, okay? I'll duplicate. Remember, press Alt and then press Shift. You will maintain your alignment. Okay, I'm going to explain what alignment is very soon. All right, so now I've done this. I'm going to duplicate this 41, duplicate again with 41, and there we have it. Okay, so right now all the shapes are moving upwards. Okay, if you want to create contrast with shape alone, not changing the color, not changing any other elements, all you need to do is rotate this maybe in a different direction. You can see that this one is standing out because it has a different direction. All right. Now, imagine that you wanted to create even more contrast. So let's say everything is this color. Okay. I'm going to make it a much darker shade. Okay. Now you see that I've not only used color, I've also used direction. Let's say I want to also use size as well. So I'm going to increase this. So you can see it's so different from everyone because it has a different size, a different color, a different direction. Okay. So as you increase the degree of difference, what you are highlighting becomes more prominent. All right. Lastly, creating contrast with, okay, I've explained with size already. Have I explained the size? No. So let's assume that we have something like this. Okay. And this is a circle. All right. And I make this small. Okay, apparently there was a duplicated circle here. Okay. Now, because this circle, even though it is smaller, because it's so different from every other one, it's the center of focus. Okay. So it doesn't even need to be the biggest one. It just needs to be the most different one. Do you understand? So don't forget that with contrast, it just needs to be very, very different from every other one. And then you have some level of focus in that regard. All right. So look at this, right? All the chairs here are gray. gray, gray, gray. But this red one stands out. It's not the biggest, but it just has a different color and it's standing out. Same here. You can see all the apples are literally the same size, but this one has a different color. Look here as well. Look at the boats. All the boats are the same color, the same size, but this is where it stands out. All these pellets or pebbles are the exact same color, white, 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 but this is different because it comes in black. Okay, so you can see what contrast looks like. You can tell the difference between the black and the white because its contrast is very, very clear, a very stark difference between them. All right, let me know if you have any clarifications on how contrast works or what it is. No questions. All right, so I'm going to move on to repetition. Repetition is the R in CRAP. Okay, don't forget C-R-A-P. C is contrast, R is repetition. All right, so repetition is simply repeating a single element many times in the design. And you might not have noticed, but we did that in the previous slides. Okay, if you noticed, this is repetition, repeating elements. Okay, repeating elements. That's basically repetition. All right. So in terms of actual design and usage, you would expect the logo of a business to be repeated on every page in the same place. For example, like business cards. When you do a business card for an organization, right? The business card is going to have some similar elements that are exactly in the exact same place for everyone, right? So that's how repetition works. Okay, once you repeat the exact same thing, that's basically what repetition is. Now, I'm sure there's something you can see here already. You can see the repetition of today, right? Today, 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 today. And you can tell that this today, the last one here is very different. So you can see the contrast at work. And as a matter of fact, you cannot have contrast in some cases in terms of using elements without repetition. You see, there's no way we'll have been able to create contrast without repetition in this case. All right, so many times you need repetition to create contrast, okay, because you need to have some things to be so the same that when they find one that is different, it's very obvious, okay? So in practice, you want to use the same heading hierarchy and fonts throughout your design. You want to use the same alignment throughout your design. You want to use the same colors, or you want to use the same logos or images across board, depending on what the function that you are performing is, all right? So this is what repetition looks like, okay? All these things are basic repetition, all right? And remember, like I said, contrast is just going to be making one stand out, all right? Look at these houses, simple repetition. All these cups, repetition. Bananas, repetition. Weekend, repetition. All right. Okay. So we're moving to alignment. All right. Now, this alignment is one of the most important principles. And I want you to pay attention if you haven't paid attention before. All right. So basically, alignment is the placement of visual elements so they line up in the composition. Now, what that means is that whenever you see anything in life, right, that seems organized, there's some form of alignment. Okay. If you look at your keyboard, all the strokes on your keyboard are on a straight line. If you look at my shirts, right, all the lines are aligned up and down. Okay, and there's something that alignment does. It creates visual cohesion. Okay, it helps to organize elements, it helps to group elements, it also helps to create balance, to create structure, and it helps to create connections between elements as well. So when you see that some elements are aligned together, you naturally group them together, and many times you use alignment to create a sharp and a clear outcome, because when they are aligned, it's visually easier for the eyes of the viewer to follow. Okay. Now, this is what alignment looks like. All right. Look at this. Aligned, aligned. You can see the straight alignment. Okay. But look at this. This is obviously not aligned because it's out of line. Another interesting thing, you see, you also begin to see how all the elements correlate. Remember, I explained how You could create contrasts from repetition. You can also create contrasts from alignment. So you can see that this one that is not aligned is going to be the focus because it's just very different. Okay, so don't forget, contrast is about the degree of difference. Okay, so here we have all these other elements lined up on a straight line, but this is coming out and it's just separate. So it's pointing to the fact that you need to have some alignment sometimes to create contrast. All right. Look at this, right? This image. You can see how everything is lining up straight. Even in these seemingly organic elements, you can see the line. You can see the alignment. Okay. And obviously, you know, there are there are 6 major types of alignment when it comes to text in your design. So here we have bottom alignment, here we have center alignment, here we have middle alignment, here we have left, right, and top alignment. Okay, and I'm going to do some practicals in this regard. All right, when you are working on anything, for example, okay, imagine that you're working on a document, right? Let me show you. So imagine that I'm designing a business card, for example. All right. Let's say the name of the business card is David Rotimi. Okay. So now this is my artboard. Okay. I'm going to drag my name up to the top right corner, make it big. All right. What's my title? Let's say creative director. Okay. Now I just need to expand this. Okay. So I'm going to align it to the left because I'm aligning all these things to my left. Okay. So what's my email address? Remember, I mentioned how you want to use shift while you're duplicating to ensure that your element is aligned. Imagine that I take my hand off shift, you see that it is no more in alignment. But also, Canva helps you to keep your alignment by, you see this line that keeps showing. It means that you are constantly aligned. When you go off alignment, it stops showing. I'm not talking about the line that's showing the dimension. I'm talking about the line that showed when they seem to be on the same line. Okay, and then you can also use this line that is on the right, that's like a dotted line. It's going to show you that you're in alignment. And even in the middle of the 2 elements, it shows that you're in alignment. All right, but if you want to just not have to guess, you can press shift and then it's just going to stay in alignment. All right, please don't forget. So I'm going to write my email address, dr@davidrotimi.com. Okay, I'm going to reduce this. Let's see, I want to make it not bold, regular. Okay, email. Okay, dr@davidrotimi.com. Then my phone number. Okay. All right. And then what's my location? Abuja, Nigeria. Okay. Now, what you're seeing here, okay. Let's say this is my business card design. All right. What you're seeing here is all the elements are aligned to the left. Okay. Now, if you notice, you can see that the distance between these 3 are not the same. So that's not something that is encourageable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete this. Okay. And I'm just going to press enter and type it under so that I have the same distance between the text. All right. Okay. So now the equidistance. Now everything is in one box. All right. So I'm just going to change this. I'll make it bold. Okay. All right. So now what we have here is left alignment. As you can see, everything is aligned to the left. Okay. Imagine that I had the multimedia creative director here, and this was the business card, right? You can tell that something is wrong. There's no alignment. Okay. But once I group them, I select them, position them, you see this thing here, this is align elements. All right. So what you do is just click left alignment and it's going to align. Now, one mistake I don't want you to make while you're working on Canva is, for example, imagine that your text box was, if you notice, almost every time my text box is not much bigger than my text. So for example, imagine that I have something like this, right? You would hardly see me do something like this. So that's something I'll advise you to do as well, all right? And that's because it helps me when I'm moving the elements around. So I don't have to trouble too much about the location or center alignment or left alignment, all right? But because I'm aligning everything to the left, I'm just going to keep this as to be left aligned, okay? Don't forget that, all right? Imagine that it was center aligned. Even if I align the boxes, see, it's left aligned. They will not be aligned. Why? Because what's inside here is middle aligned. Okay, so there are two types of alignment you want to observe in Canva: the alignment of your text in the text box, and then the alignment of the box itself. Okay, don't forget. So imagine that this was center aligned, and then this was center aligned, and I aligned all the boxes. All the boxes are aligned, but the texts in the text box are not aligned, so which defeats our purpose. All right, so I'm just going to do left alignment for everything. All right. If I wanted to do center alignment for this, what would I do? I'll come here and click center alignment. Okay. Now everything is center aligned. Even this is center aligned. You would know by when we expand it. Okay. You can see that. All right. So what you want to do after center aligning the text in the elements, you want to come here, position, center align all the elements. Okay. And so we have all the elements in center alignment. If you were to be right alignment, we'll click right alignment and then you align all the elements. Okay. So please don't forget that when you are working with text in the text box, you need to align the text in the text box as well as the box of the text, as well as the text box. Okay. So basically, this is how alignment works. All right. You can align different ways depending on what your preference is, okay, or depending on what you are trying to achieve. All right. So lastly, let's do proximity. Okay. Now, proximity in design simply means that objects near each other are seen as a unit. So what that means is when you're designing anything at all, right, you want to group elements that seem to have a similar purpose together. Okay, and elements that are closer together are perceived to be more related than elements that are farther apart. Another word for proximity is similarity. So you naturally gather similar elements together. Okay. Now, here's what proximity looks like. Okay, you see all these elements are grouped together. And then this is different. And you see this one coming out is creating contrast because it's very different. Okay, now I want you to look at this. Okay, you see this business card, similar to what we had designed earlier, right? Have you noticed that we naturally put phone number, email address, and website together? Why? Because those are contact details. So in any banner, any design, you naturally see that similar elements are grouped. So you have name and your designation grouped together. You would have your phone number, email address, website grouped together. Then you have icon elements grouped together. Okay, so you want to ensure that you have elements that should be together, grouped together, okay, as opposed to just scattering them around. Let me show you what it might look like if your elements are just scattered around, okay? So let's assume that we had, let me duplicate this, okay? So here, and then here, okay? So imagine that we actually wanted to align everything, okay? Let's say we align everything, all right? Everything is left aligned, all right, in the text box. And now I position everything to be left aligned, okay? And then what's this? This is Colfax 70, all right? So you know what I'm getting at now. Okay, so this is a business card design, all right? Okay, or let's say I didn't even group them together. Let's say, right now, the problem with this is that you can't pick what you need to pick out. It's like you're just writing an essay as opposed to having something like this, where, and I'm going to explain the difference between this and this to you very soon. It's something called hierarchy, okay? And I'm going to explain that when I'm explaining design terms in the next class, okay? So pay attention when I'm explaining that class, design terms. Now, because principles of design are really large, it's difficult to actually go over every single one, okay? But I just want to give the basics so that we go in depth into design terminologies and explaining different design concepts. It will be easy to understand, all right? So now I've aligned everything to the left with the text in the text box. Now I'm positionally aligning everything to the left, all right? So the difference between this and this is, number one, so there's no grouping, right? Let's assume that I'm not working on the hierarchy, okay? I'm going to explain hierarchy once. Just let me explain how proximity works, okay? Imagine that I simply separated these two, okay? Now, it makes a whole lot of difference, even though it's still not as good as this, okay? Because now I can see David Rotimi, creative director, and then I can see Abuja, Nigeria, davidrotimi.com, then email address. All right. Imagine that. Now, what is missing here, obviously, is hierarchy. In hierarchy, what you want to do in hierarchy is you are placing emphasis on the most important things, and then you are reducing emphasis on the less important things. All right. So here, what's the most important thing, or what's the most visible thing? Yeah, literally, you many times you use contrast to create hierarchy. Okay, so let me show you what it looks like. Imagine that we were going to leave them at the exact same size. Okay, I'll make everything color yellow. Okay, and then I'll make, you know what, let me take this back up so we can see. I'll make this color dark blue, right? And then I'll do this. Okay, now what I've done is I've highlighted my name and my email address because I'm assuming that those are the two most important things. All right, that's how you use contrast. Okay, but if you want to introduce hierarchy, or if you want to introduce proximity into this design, now we will group these three together, separate them from the two above. Okay, so you can see that there's a difference. All right, or in the context, since we have divided them, what we can even do now is we can change the color. You know what, I'm going to make this color, and then I'm going to keep these ones as yellow. Okay, because I want to create proximity. All right, even if I don't separate them, right, because I've made them different colors, there's some group, there's a way they seem to be grouped. Okay, because I have grouped them with color. All right, so these minute things, I want you to start to watch out for them, because we're going to do a lot of that when we start to practicalize. All right, so what do I want to introduce to this design to actually make it more perfect? I'm going to introduce hierarchy. All right, now locations. The location is not the first thing I want the people to see. Okay, the first thing I want them to see is my name. All right. So apart from the color, let's assume that everything is black. All right. To work on hierarchy, let's assume everything is black. What I want to do is I'll reduce the line width of this text. Okay, because it's too bold. So let me make it bold instead of black or regular. Okay. All right. And then I'll obviously give it some space. Okay. Now I'm going to make this much bigger because it's literally the most important thing. All right. And then I'm going to make this smaller because it's important, but it's not as important as this. Okay. And then there we go. All right. So I've introduced hierarchy in the sense that I've made the most important thing important, because on the business card, what people want to see is what's your name and what's your position first before they say, okay, let me find you. All right. Imagine that I had these two as the biggest. That would be terrible hierarchy, because this information is important, but it should not be less important compared to this. Okay, I hope you understand how this works now. Let me know if you understand what I've explained in terms of proximity and contrast, repetition, and all of that. Okay, I can see the chat box. Great, 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 great. All right, all right, all right, all right. So we're going to move on to some practice, all right? So I'm just going to design a few things and I'll walk you through why I'm making those decisions. Or what we can even do is, before we do one, I'm going to go through some templates on Canva, and then we're just going to go over some of the decisions that they made and why they made those decisions, all right? So now you can follow me. I'm going to create a new design. Let's say it's an Instagram post. All right. Now, look at this design. All right. It's a pro template, but this time I want people to speak. All right. So I want to hear someone's voice. What is the most prominent thing you can see here? What's the first thing your eyes saw when you came into this design?
The money.
The money. Okay. Any other person? Was it different for any other person?
Back in stock.
Back in stock. Okay. Any other person? Who was back in stock? Who was the money?
Back in stock, Zion.
Okay, back in stock, Zion.
I saw the image first.
You saw the image first. Okay, okay, okay. But which text did you see first?
Back in stock.
Back in stock. Okay, okay. So, okay. So obviously we can see the principles of design play here, because back in stock is the biggest, right? And you see what they are doing here is, and 89 pounds is also very obvious, but it's, in my opinion, personally, it's not as obvious as back in stock. Okay, but it's obvious enough for you not to miss out on it. Like, and you can tell by the way they positioned it, they put it in the center, so it's literally unmissable. After you read back in stock, before you read pre-order, you will see this $sign. Okay, and then you can see the contact is at the smallest, because before you even get to this really great site, you must have been welcomed first from back in stock, right? So I need you to have this mindset when you are designing. The first thing you want your customer or your client or whoever is seeing your design to see is what you make the most prominent thing. Okay, so please don't forget. All right, so let's go and look at another design. All right, so let's look at this, right? What's the first thing that you can read? Anybody, please feel free to speak.
Black Friday.
Black Friday, right?
Black Friday.
Great. Black Friday. Okay. And that's because you can see the heavy use of contrast. You see, the reason why you would naturally see Black Friday before Yay is that the contrast between this black and this gray is higher than white and gray. So because this place has the heaviest contrast, your eyes naturally move in that direction. Okay. For some other people, they will actually read Yay, it's Black Friday together. But this part is like one of the most condensed parts. So you can see how contrast is working. It's making the, and because it's a Black Friday event, so obviously they want you to see that really quickly. Okay. Another thing is, can you see what's happening here? Can you see how small this is compared to the main information? Because first they need to draw you in. All right. So Yay is Black Friday. If Yay is Black Friday did not succeed at drawing you in, there's no point of reading this because you would not actually use the details. Okay. So that's why these details are not as big as this. So don't fall into the trap of making your call to action the biggest thing every single time. Some people, if we're going to design this, they will have done something like this: get free shipping. And then they'll do, yeah, it's Black Friday, small like this. Or no, they'll actually do, yeah, it's Black Friday, okay? And then put this like this, okay? And then maybe the picture will be here somewhere. You see, like this is a design actually, right? But it's not as effective as the previous one because you're overselling. And now your design feels too clogged up because there's too much text in some sense. Okay, so let's look out for more templates. Let's look out for a sales template, and then you see the difference between many of the banners we've been seeing and when you're actually targeting sales. All right. So, funny. Let's look at okay, they're all English. All right. So, let's look at this. All right. What's the first thing your eyes saw?
Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday sale, right? And that's obvious because this text is the biggest text in this design. Okay. So it's not even difficult. So when you're designing, remember that what you want to be the most important thing is what you make the biggest. All right. Let's look through. Look at this design. The first thing your eye see is what?
30%.
And it makes sense. Why? Because they made it big. Okay. So whatever your design is, whatever you want your customer to see first is what you make the most prominent. All right. Don't forget. Okay. Let's look at another design. What's the first thing your eyes saw?
50% off.
Right? 50% off. And you can see the sweet contrasts. Imagine that they used, let me see, imagine that maybe the person that designed this thing is a girly girl and she wanted to use her favorite color. Okay. She will have used pink. And then imagine this. So you see the contrast is poor. Or let's say it was a manly man, right? And I wanted to use black. And let's say this text was dark blue because I don't like too many colors, right? This is poor contrast. You won't see this very clearly. Okay. So that's why I spent all that time to explain contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Okay. And if you notice, you'll see that these elements are all aligned. Can you see? So as you are arranging your text, as you are arranging your elements, you need to keep them aligned. If you are using left alignment, align them to the left. If you are using right alignment, align them to the right. If you are using center alignment, align them to the center. Okay. Let's look at this design. What's the first thing your eyes saw?
Still, still, still.
Still, right? And you can see the repetition there. Can you see it? Very, very
Yes.
easily, right? So repetition has its effects when you use it very well, okay? And then once you go over still, your eyes go straight to flash to 20% of all items. And you can see the contrasts. Imagine that somebody just wanted to add this text on it like this. Can you see the text?
No.
Okay, so, and this is another thing. When we start to design proper, I'll start to introduce some things to you, and you can be watching, you can be observing from here. You see this thing that they did here? They used the shape. All right. Because if you, the only other way, imagine that we didn't want to use the shape, for example, right? And let's say this image was here. All right. What we will have done is maybe change the text to white. Okay. And the only reason why this text will show a little bit is because the background is dark. Or the picture at the back is somehow dark. But the contrast is not as great as when you have this. So sometimes when you are designing, you might need to introduce some elements to create contrast. When you're working with pictures, when you're working with shapes and all of that, especially pictures, right? Imagine that we're like, you know what? We don't want to use the shape at all, right? Okay. We don't want to use the shape at all, but we want the contrast to be there. What can we do? So I'm going to align this to the left, all right? Align this to the center, select both of them. What do I do again? Align everything to the center, okay? Drag them into the center, all right, of my page. And then I want to make this white as well. So what do? I want to make this obvious, okay? I'll change the color to white as well, right? And then I'll center align them, center align the position, and then drag them into the middle, okay? Now, what I want to teach you is a simple trick that you can always use many times. Introduce an overlay, okay? If you don't want to have any other shape on your design, I'll show you what an overlay is. Once you select this, you import a shape, okay? And then you increase the size, right? So it's a rectangle, it's covering everything already. What do you want to do? You change the color to black, okay? And then we reduce the opacity, the transparency, okay? Now, you can see the image is still there, but this is more obvious. Can you see? You can see your sale, and your text clearer compared to when it was like this. Sorry, compared to when it was like this. Is there any difference?
Yes.
So this is a trick that you can always use, okay? Or sometimes you can just introduce an actual shape, all right? So in this case, maybe something like this, which is similar to what they did, okay? And then introduce another shape here as well. Okay? But this time, maybe you want to make it black because you want to use white text and then remove all of the opacity. Okay, you can make it very dark. Or you can change your text to black and make this white. So you see, I'm using contrast with color because black text is not going to show on the dark background. You need bright on dark or dark on bright if you're working with shapes and colors. Okay, so I'm going to change this to white. Okay, can you see the difference? Now, because there's a transparency, it's showing part of the image, but I didn't want any transparency because I want this to pop really well. Okay, so I can just remove this because it's still going to show somehow. Okay. All right. So let me know if you understood so far. If you have any questions, I'm ready to go over your questions. Any questions? Oh my God, am I that great a teacher?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there was this time you were saying if we want the box not to have too much space by the side, controlled sort of, what key do we press to avoid that? I don't know whether you get, you know, when you are writing a text in a box,
yes,
you were trying to say that we could avoid having too much space, you know?
Okay. Yes. I remember.
You were trying to tell us that we should press a key to avoid having so much space in such a way that we'll be wasting time trying to block those spaces.
Okay. Yes.
That is the first question. Second one is, I don't know what you are doing to get all these grid numbers that are showing up. In the assignments, I had problems aligning those elements. I had to use my eyes to gauge the distances. But when you were doing it, you were constant at 99. How are you coming up? What are you pressing to give you those figures?
Okay. So the figures are automatic, actually. If you know what, let me try to share with my browser. So I'm going to share another screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. So now, if I was working on a design, create a new design, Instagram post. And let's say I create a shape. Okay. And I'm creating another shape. So the numbers come up automatically. I don't have to do anything. Did you get that? So once I'm duplicating, like this is a shape, right? And if I'm trying to duplicate this shape, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Option on Mac or Alt on keyboard on Windows for duplicating a shape. Once I press Alt on my keyboard and I select and I click and drag, the numbers show automatically. So that's how come the numbers are there. Then what I was explaining about the text, when I write something like this and I say hello, right? Now, sometimes you can see that there's no space around this text, right? Sometimes when you work with a template, for example, let's say, let's work with a template. Let's say this work from home templates. I apply all pages. Okay. I'm trying to edit this. I am group. I select this. Now you see this extra space it's a personal preference. It's not something that you always have to do. It's just a personal preference for me. I like to work with all of this extra space in between. So what I mostly do most times is I drag my text box until it's at the edge of the text, so that when I'm moving my text box around, I don't have to bother about that extra space there. So it's not a compulsory thing. I mean, if it was like this, it will still work perfectly, okay? Because if I move it around, it will still work fine. But personally, I usually like to just drag it towards the end. So there's no button to press. All you need to do is drag the edge of your text box and you have your design done. Any other question? All right, so no other questions. Thank you, everyone.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Are you going to discuss the assignment? Because I found it difficult to color that design, to color it yellow.
Okay.
I don't know whether you are going to go over that design.
Okay, let me quickly go over it because of time. Okay. So, let me create a new design. All right. So how I did it is very simple. I create a new design. All right. Instagram post. Okay. Now, what I did, I just came to text. Okay. And then click on add a heading. I know the elements. Okay. So once I do this, first of all, the background is black. So I'm just going to change the background to black. And then I'll change the text to white. Okay. And then what else did I add? A line. So I'm going to type line and then insert a line. Very simple. And you can see my alignment. I'm keeping it right in the middle. Okay. If I drag it to the right, it's no more in the middle. So whenever you drag it into the middle, this line shows up. All right. And then of design. So most times I usually just duplicate this and edit the text. All right. So I'm just going to press Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and duplicate. And then I'll type elements, type design. Okay, I know the elements. So it's supposed to be, I know the elements of design. Okay, so you see that space I was talking about is showing up already. So I usually just like to keep it without those spaces and just keep it in the middle. Okay, I know the elements of design. All right. So now I'm going to drag this so it's big and then change the color to yellow. Yellow. It's supposed to be bright yellow. Okay. And then now there are two ways you can do this. Okay. I saw some people, they did it in different ways. There are two ways you can do this. You can duplicate this. Okay. And then have an effect on this. So the effect is hollow. So once you do the hollow effect on this, you can drag this and then turn it to the right. And then you have a very similar effect to what I did. Okay. On the contrary, you can remove the hollow design. What I actually did was splice. Okay. And the color of my splice was the exact same color of my text. Okay. So you can reduce the thickness and then you can change the direction. Remember, I showed you how to use this in the effects, and then you can increase the offsets or reduce the offsets. Okay, so that was basically it. And then what I then went on to do was introduce shapes. So circle, okay. So I had a circle, I had a triangle, and I had a square, and they were all three different colors. Okay, so I'll just select all three of them, reduce the size. Okay. I can't remember the exact order in which I arranged them, but let's just say I have three shapes. Okay. And then I'm just going to keep them. Now, how do I ensure that they have the exact same size in between them? So what I typically do is I'll click on this. I'll make this kind of like a ruler. Okay. To have a dimension, all right? And then I'm just going to drag this down and then keep this in the middle. So they have the exact same distance between them, all right? So I have my three shapes. I just need to change the colors. So this will be yellow, this will be blue, this will be red. And there you go. Is it clear enough? Hello?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right, we're already out of time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're already out of time, so I need to call it a day. Thank you, everyone. Tomorrow, sorry, not tomorrow, on Friday, we're going to go over design terms. what they mean, how to use them. And the reason why design terms are important is, number one, it increases your vocabulary. Sometimes you might be looking for a particular element, you will not know what you're looking for. So you want an element that is swirly, you don't know that what you're looking for are swirls, and you will not know how to find it if you don't know what to type in the elements. Okay, so imagine that I was looking for swirls and I did not know what swirls are. Okay, so what would you type? You can type other things like curves. Okay, and you'll find similar stuff, but it won't be exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so in tomorrow's class, we're going to go over all the elements, or many of the design terms, and then we're going to go over them one by one and learn and move on from there. All right, so I'll send the assignment over on the WhatsApp group, and we will call it a day. Thank you everyone for joining. I trust you had an amazing time. See you on Friday by 9 p.m. Please don't be late. Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Yeah, bye. Thank you.